All right, everyone, let's get started. Thank you all for coming in and joining in on the conversation. This is Janae Sasso, President and Founder of Carekeepers, and tonight's webinar is going to be exciting. Hopefully you will gain some insight about how to overcome some of your own challenges. You know, all of us, I was just listening, I was at the gym earlier this afternoon and was listening to a interview with Donald Trump. And the person that was interviewing him asked, what's kind of his secret to success and how do you move forward in life and achieve your goals? And interesting enough, he admitted the fact that we all have challenges that we're going to encounter along our journey. No matter how successful you become, you are going to have some earth-shattering situations that come your way, and it's going to take some mental fortitude to really push past those boundaries. And he went on to talk about how some of the most brilliant people that he knows have had some very devastating things happen to them, and they were unable to push past them, and unfortunately never really got back at the top of their game. So, all of us at some point in life, no matter how successful we become, no matter how big or small our dreams are, we're all going to encounter some things that really turn our lives upside down. And so the webinar series that we're doing that's sponsored by Carekeepers is all about helping you to gain a new understanding, a new perspective on the challenges in your life. As caregivers, we go through a lot of different things, but I am a living testimony that, things happen, the challenges come, but at the end of the day, you can make it work for you and you can come out on the other side of that experience better and not bitter. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you this evening Frank Friedland. And I know Frank quite well. We've had several meetings and conversations, and his story really just fascinates me because, a lot of us have so many things that we're dealing with, and this man has been able to just almost, it looks like he just flawlessly continues to move forward with his life and remains successful and does all the things that he does despite his physical challenges. So I wanted to bring him on to share with you all some of his, secrets, if there's such thing as a secret, to success. But without further ado, hi Frank, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us this evening and sharing your story.
It's my pleasure.
Great.
I want to thank the listeners for tuning in, and I'd like to briefly give you a little bit about my background, and I'm going to start at the very beginning. When I was born, I weighed 3 pounds, and when my grandfather saw me for the first time, I was in the arms of my mother, and he looked down and said, "Rachel," which was my mother's name. He said, "Rachel, thank God this is a boy. He is the ugliest baby I have ever seen.
Oh my goodness.
Don't worry." He said, "But don't worry. When he grows up, we'll put him into a blue suit, white shirt, and we'll make sure he shines his shoes, and he will be fine." And so they basically were the first words I heard when my life began. And from that humble start, I was an athlete in high school and college. I played football in college, and I became a paratrooper, and I was injured and spent 9 months paralyzed in the hospital. And I was operated on the same time that President Eisenhower was operated on, although he had much nicer facilities, believe me. And so they shortened me, and that ended my football career because there were some aspirations of playing professionally. And the health challenges I faced, obviously, that was one of them. And then when I was 59 years old, I came down with pancreatic cancer, and when I was 59 years old, pancreatic cancer there wasn't a whole lot that could be done with it. Even today, it's a very serious type cancer. But I went to University of Virginia Hospital and then up to Johns Hopkins, and the chief of surgery, John Cameron, did the operation on me. He removed 100% of my pancreas, and very few people survived that operation. Fortunately, I was one of them. And then I got back to my normal life, and then we went till last year. And what happened was, on the pancreatic cancer, some pancreatic cells escaped, and they got into both lungs and into one kidney. And my immune system kept them dormant for like 13 years. And then they became active in February of last year. And so they put me on chemo 8 hours a day. I'm sorry, not 8 hours a day, 8 hours a week at one time, a session every Friday morning. And we did that for about 3 months, and that wasn't helping. So we went to chemo for 55 hours a session. I went in on Friday mornings, and so and I had a port put in me so I could take the chemo bags home with me. And so I did chemo from 8:30 Friday morning to all day Friday, all day Saturday. Sunday, the bags would empty around 2 o'clock. And then on Monday, I would go back in and do approximately 3 more hours. And that takes a lot out of you. I'm not going to go into all the things that it does to you, but it takes a lot out of you because chemo is a poison, and it rips you up inside, the good as well as the bad. And we started seeing some improvement. And we were doing that till recently, until December, 55 hours every 2 weeks, because I'd skip a week, and I was able to work. When I got home from doing the chemo on Monday, I had to stay home to regain strength Monday and Tuesday, but I was able to get back and do what I love doing, which is my profession, and I was able to go back and do that for 9 days before I had to go back in and start the process over. So there were the medical challenges that I faced, and fortunately, the last 3 CAT scans, the last one being done in February, shows that I have stabilized the cancer cells, and I have been off chemo now since the end of December. And I'll do a CAT scan every 3 months, and as long as my immune system prevents the cancer cells from growing, I'm off of chemo and can get back to doing everything 7 days a week that I normally do, and can actually go on a vacation, because obviously while I was in the chemo, I couldn't leave the area. So we're kind of looking forward to that, and just got my fingers crossed that every CAT scan shows that everything is still in check, and that my immune system is preventing the cells in the 3 different organs from growing. I mean, I never smoked cigarettes. I never drank a lot, because I'm told that 70% of all pancreatic cancers is caused by excessive drinking, and everybody knows that often lung doesn't have to be, but often lung cancer is caused by smoking. And I've never smoked a cigarette or a pipe or anything in my whole life. So you can get these things without, abusing yourself. But you deal with it.
Yeah. Well, tell us, Frank, how what was going through your mind when you first heard the words, you have cancer? I mean, you're a healthy man and you're trying to do everything right by your body. What goes through your mind when you hear those words for the first time, you have cancer?
Well, I'm going to answer your question, but first I'd like to say this. It's easy. I mean, everyone faces challenges, and it's easy to be happy-go-lucky and everybody likes you when everything is going your way. And my father told me many times while I was growing up that one's character is defined on how you react to unpleasant situations. And remember that no matter what difficulties you face, there are many who have faced worse situations. So always be humble and be thankful. Now, when I first heard the words, you have cancer, keep in mind I was injured as a paratrooper and paralyzed for 9 months. And so I spent 9 months in bed just looking up at the ceiling. So I took every day, every second to be important as long as you were alive. So when I first heard the words, you have cancer, and there's no cancer in my family, only thing that crossed my mind was that I made a promise to Marcia, that's my wife for 42 years, and I promised her that I would always be there for her, and if I died, then I wouldn't be able to keep my promise. And that's what went through my mind when I first heard the words, you have cancer, was I have to beat this because I cannot be here for Marcia if I let it beat me. Because you only lose one time. You only lose once to cancer. I mean, I've had cancer 4 times, and so far I've beat it 4 times. But you only get, I mean, you've got to win. I mean, if you lose, it's over. So that was the thing when I first heard I had cancer that went through my mind, was the promise I made to my wife, who I worship and adore, and the most important person in the world to me, was that I would always be here for her, and so I had to win.
Great. Yeah, I think having that fight in you definitely is important, and you know, I've been through my own challenges as well, and my husband recovered from cancer about 1.5 years ago, and so definitely having that fight and having your previous history of the other challenges that you face also helps you. I think a lot of times we despise the challenges that we face in life. We don't want to go through difficulty, but I think over time it really helps you to be in a position to take on those greater challenges that are yet in your future. And so because of you being with the paratrooper and being injured and having to give up your athletic career, I'm sure that, as you said earlier, really helped you to mentally prepare for whatever did lie ahead, for the future.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, when we came down with these 3 cancers at one time, and they told me 55 hours of chemo, Marcia looked at me and I mean, she could tell a lot was going through my mind and everything. And so she said to me, she asked me a question. She said, do you love me? And I said, Marcia, of course you know I love you. She said, then we will beat this, and you will do everything you can. I don't want you to suffer and be in pain, but whatever it takes, you do. Because you told me you love me. Because you told me you love me. And her strength, because I physically went through it and mentally went through it, but if I died, it's over. It's over. She has to live with it for the rest of her life, that I'm gone. And so it was her strength that I drew so much from. I mean, it was like when you're running a marathon and you're on empty and you got another 3 miles to run. It was Marcia's strength and my love and our love for each other that saw me through this. Absolutely, without
Definitely.
question.
Yeah, definitely. So that brings me to a point of who you surround yourself with during times of trouble is so important to helping you to get past that hurdle. You know, a lot of us take for granted. We want this grand life and we want to accomplish all of these things, but we fail to realize that it's important to really take seriously who you surround yourself with, because if you don't have people that are trying to help you to fight and to encourage you, it's going to be very difficult for you to stay in the fight. And so you had your wife there to really help fight with you. And I think a lot of times we minimize the value of that type of support system. You know, a lot of us like to be the Lone Ranger. We like to go off alone and think we're going to accomplish all these things, but you really got to have a good support system.
You must have a good support system. And for people who have family members who have cancer or have friends who have cancer, I can only tell you from my personal experience that it means so much to let that person know you care about them, you love them, and you're there for them, and give them support, because it's as much a mental battle as it is a physical battle. Because if you give up mentally, I mean, you're giving up, and I mean, you got to win both battles, the physical aspect of it, and as well as the mental aspect of it. And family is so important in that respect.
Definitely. Now, I'm glad you brought that up about the mental part. Did you ever ask yourself that question that most of us probably would ask? Why me? You know, I did everything I was supposed to do. Why me?
Well, I mean, that's the normal question that you know, why me? But actually, that's a question I never did ask, and the reason why is because I knew that I didn't cause this. I mean, people who smoke excessively or drink excessively, I mean, you can read all the articles you want to that can explain that you're increasing the odds of you catching pancreatic cancer or lung cancer or liver cancer or, you know, whatever. But I didn't do it. I mean, I basically lived an extremely healthy life. I work out every day ever since I can remember, for at least an hour a day, and you know, I still do. So that really I never said why me, but because it happened. Life happens, and I knew there was no answer to it except that I had to battle it, because I had in my mind I had to be there for Marcia, and so I didn't say why me, but that's a question that I would assume most people would say, why did this have to happen to me? But when I went through what I went through as a paratrooper and spent 9 months in the hospital looking to the ceiling, I said, why me, a lot of times back then, when I was like 20 years old. So I guess I got why me'd out. You just deal with life and handle it as best you can, and always realize, like I said before, that no matter what your situation is, there are people in this world who are suffering more or going through more pain, whether it be physical pain or mental pain or financial pain. There's always somebody who's in a worse position than you're in. So just be thankful you're here and be humble.
Definitely. And I remember when you would come to some of our meetings and you would talk about how you would see some other individuals, whether it were young children that were battling cancer, and how you got kind of a renewed strength and a renewed outlook on your own situation just by connecting with them. How, you know, they had a smile on their face, or they said some words of wisdom, and they did all of that despite the fact that they were battling for their lives. Can you talk a little bit about how you tapped into that?
Yeah, absolutely. In the area I live in, and where I live in Williamsburg, Virginia, but my office is over in Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. And there's a King Daughters Children's Hospital in downtown Norfolk. And about once every 4 or 5 months, I'll go up into King Daughters Children's Hospital to the cancer ward just to walk around. And I see these children, 4 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, and they've got cancer. And many of them aren't going to make it. And I look at them, and needless to say, I get teary-eyed because cancer didn't hit me till I was 59. So I had 59 years of a healthy life. And these children get hit right away. And so you said, why me? When I would see this, I would say, why them? Because they didn't, why at such a young age? And I don't know why. And I can play all kinds of mental games. I'm never going to be figure out, why. But that's life just doesn't always go the way you plan for it to go. But I do get a lot of strength from that, and I walk out feeling how lucky I am because I had a great nephew who died from cancer at age 10. And, he only lived 10 years. That's tough. So every day you're alive, every day you can do things and be with your family and make a difference in the world, you should go to bed at night with a smile on your face.
Definitely. So it sounds to me like it's all about a person's perspective on the situation and the circumstances that they're facing that really shapes how they're going to deal with those life challenges.
This is very true. Because people face challenges all the time, whether they be medical challenges, spiritual challenges, financial challenges. People face challenges all the time, and the character of a person comes out in how they go about facing these challenges. Do they cause misery on everybody around them, or do they try to make it work and let the people around them who care about them and love them feel good about the way you as an individual are dealing with this, and it inspires them. So that's my goal, is to inspire people to just never give up, and because you never know what's around the corner, what kind of technology is around the corner. For example, when I came down with pancreatic cancer, it was like a death sentence. And today it isn't. If you go for your annual physical, there are doctors that can, not all doctors have the equipment, but there are doctors that can test you to see if you have pancreatic cancer. And if you catch it in the early stage, it's very easy beatable today. The girl who sang the Star Spangled Banner in the Atlanta Summer Olympics, I forgot which night she sang, but she sang it at one of the opening ceremony nights. She was like 13, 14 years old, and she had pancreatic cancer and had 100% of her pancreas removed, and she was fine. If that had happened when it happened to me, the odds are she probably wouldn't be here. So technology is always improving, and medical research is always improving, and so that all is good. And you really have to make the best you can out of your life, because you don't get a second chance at life. So my attitude is you want to be all you can be to make every day count in helping people with what you do professionally or in your community, to make it a better place, and to make the people you love proud of you, because it's all about family and your friends. Because when all is said and done, it's your family and friends. I mean, mainly mostly family, but friends are an important part also that that you want to leave a lasting impression on.
Definitely. Now, you brought up your professional life, and you said that, you know, although you were doing the 55 hours of chemo, you still got up and went to work full steam ahead when you recovered from, you know, the chemo treatments. How did you do that? I mean, a lot of us would have, I know I would, I don't do good with a cold. A lot of us would have said, you know what, it's just not worth it. Let me just focus on getting better. Why did you choose to still continue with your work?
I could have retired a long time ago because, as you know, I'm the number one life insurance salesman with a company that's got approximately 40,000 agents, and I sell more life insurance in their 129-year history than anybody has ever sold with them. So I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I help a lot of people, and I design permanent insurance so that it's different than the way people normally expect it to be. But that's why I save them a lot of money the way I design it. But I'm going to go back to something that a doctor told me once, and I don't think I said this, but if I have, Janae, just stop me because I don't want to repeat myself. When I had pancreatic cancer, the surgeon, his name's Dr. Cameron, came into my room. He was chief of surgery. And I was really complaining that day of how much pain I was in. And he would come by to see me like 5:30 in the morning. And he said, good. And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean good? And he said, Frank, I've never had someone tell me who was dead that they were in pain. And I really thought about that. So if you're in pain, it means you're alive.
Wow.
And if you're alive, it means you should move forward. Dead people can't complain. So, I mean, that was his point. He said, I've never had a dead person complain before. And so he said, you're alive. So go from there.
Wow.
And,
powerful words.
And see, I don't look at what I do as work. And you've heard me say this before, Janae. The definition of work is to toil, to sweat, to labor. And there are obviously, you know, and I know there's hundreds of millions of people that work, but I have a real passion for what I do, so I never have considered it work. It brings me pleasure. I don't even think of, I never look at a clock. I put in basically 105 hours a week. Time has no meaning to me as long as I can help people with what I do in my profession. And so it's not work to me. So I really love what I do. So rather than stay home and look at the four walls or feel sorry for myself, it's much better and healthier for me, both physically and mentally, to go out and do my profession and help people. And I think that keeps me, I think it keeps me young because most of the people I talk to are younger than me. So they keep calling me sir, and I keep, or Mr. Friedland, and I say, please call me Frank because it'll make me feel younger. So, I mean, I just don't look at what I do as work. If I looked at it as work, yes, I would have retired. But I don't.
Yeah. Wow. So it sounds to me that the whole thought of living life without limits means that you have to engage in life in such a way that you're doing what you're passionate about. That also serves, I believe, as a strength for you to even fight through the cancer. You know, if you hate your life and you hate your job and you hate everything around you, it's going to be real difficult to push past whatever limitations life is presenting to you at that time. I always tell people, you know, the moment you decide to go out and embark on your vision or your dream, life is immediately going to present to you the reasons why you can't. It's your job to fight back and say, no, this is why I can. But if you don't have that motivation, that passion like you do, Frank, wouldn't you agree that it's going to be hard to really push past whatever obstacles are in your way?
I mean, it might be, yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult. I'm going to use an example. I'm going back to when I had pancreatic cancer when I was 59. I went into Johns Hopkins Hospital weighing 190 pounds. I came out weighing about 120 pounds. I looked like something out of one of those death camps where you can see all the bones and everything. But after my surgery, I could not hold a toothbrush in my hand. I did not have the strength to brush my own teeth. And I remember I pressed the button for a nurse to come in my room, and she said to me, how can I help you? And I said, would you please help me stand up? And she says, you're not strong enough to stand up. Why do you want to stand up? And I said, because I want to try to walk. Because anytime you have surgery, I mean, any doctor would tell you, the sooner you can get up and move around, the better it is. Even if it's moving just a few steps and then going back to bed. So she wouldn't. She didn't have any instructions to have me get out of bed from any doctor. So I told her, can you put me on the floor? And she said, why? And I said, because I'll crawl. And she says, no, I can't do that. And and so she left. So then I managed to get myself out of the bed, and I got myself on the floor, and I literally crawled. And I crawled around the section out the cancer ward I was in. They call it a pod. And I actually got on. I was crawling because I couldn't stand up. I was crawling, and I crawled around the pod, and I crawled as far as I could crawl. I figured I'd used up 50% of my capacity. So I turned around and crawled the other 50% and got back in bed. And I actually crawled on the floor. Doctor came to see me, and he said, where is the patient? And they said, he's crawling around the floor. He's somewhere here on the pod. And he got in front of me and says, what are you doing? And I said, I got to get some exercise. I got to build up my strength. And he says, okay. And he just kept letting me crawl. And then I got to the point where I could take baby steps, and then I got to the point where, I could walk. And but no, you can't. You have to have the mental attitude. Well, first you have to have a strong desire to win, and you only win by making yourself better, both mentally. I can't express enough the mental aspect of everything. You convince yourself mentally, and if you convince yourself mentally, physically, you can make your body do things. It's unbelievable what the mind can do, even if the body doesn't want to do it. And of course, I got a lot of this from my days when I played football with my coaches, and discipline and repetition on if you want to be better, you have to lift more weights, you have to run further, you have to have all these different things you have to do. But it's just doesn't apply to athletes. If you want to be a better student, you got to spend more hours probably studying than somebody who only wants to be an average student. There's a price to pay for everything, and there's a reason why generally people who are A students, sometimes their friends would call them bookworms, because they spend more time learning to get better grades. There's a price to pay. There's a price to pay for everything, and I truly believe that when all is said and done, the only person you have to blame for yourself if you're not happy with where you are is a person you see in the mirror. Because anybody can achieve anything if they strive hard enough to do it, and even if it's only reaching the highest capability you have to reach. And by that I mean I have more respect for a person who no one expected to graduate from high school, yet that person ended up graduating from college and reached his or her potential. I have much more respect for that person than someone who graduated from Harvard and only uses 50% of what they are capable of. Even though they may make tons of money and all this kind of stuff, but if they only use 50% of what they're capable of, I've got more respect for the person who is using 100% of what they're capable of, and I've just got a great deal more respect for that person.
Definitely.
That's what you do
Yeah,
with
so
your
it's
life.
all about the maximizing your potential and being the best you that you can be, basically, you know. For those people that are listening. Oh, go ahead, Frank.
Well, I was just saying, the favorite commercial I've ever heard or seen was Nike, when they have 3 words: just do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely have had those conversations with myself several times of just do it. I think a lot of times we want things in life and we debate. And I always tell people, when you start debating, that's when you start leaving room for excuses. So if you just do it and don't think about it, it's less likely that you'll chicken out. But I did want you to share some words with those individuals that may have just gotten a cancer diagnosis, or they may be caring for someone with a cancer diagnosis. What advice would you give to someone that just heard those same words, "you have cancer"?
When you hear the words "you have cancer," and I do believe that probably one of the first things that come up is, why me? Because it's scary. I mean, it's very frightening, especially if you've never been around cancer. People who've had cancer before, or nobody in your family ever had cancer before. You just don't know what to expect, and so you go online and you read everything you can get your hands on, and sometimes that's helpful, and sometimes it's not so helpful. But what I will say to people who hear the words that you have cancer is that research is improving daily. They are always finding different things to come up with to help. And you don't know how long of a battle you're going to have to face. But one thing you do know is, if you let it get the best of you and it beats you, it's over. I mean, you're going to die. And if you can string it out, and different medications come into effect, different type surgeries come into effect, different chemo bags they use come up with different formulas for it, come into effect, it can save you. And so you fight it every single second. And I'm not going to say days, because if you're going through, if you have cancer and you're going through chemo, and chemo affects people different ways, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but if you have chemo, it's a battle every second, and you have to battle it, and you know your loved ones are suffering, not physically, but they're suffering mentally, and sometimes it's harder on them mentally than it is on you mentally, and so you want to try to develop an attitude that, how can I deal with this so that every time my wife sees me, she doesn't cry, or my children see me, they don't look frightened. How can I put on a different face so that I make everything as positive as I can in the light of everything I'm going through? And if you're a religious person and you have lots of strength that you can gather from that, use it, because that is a wonderful vehicle. Use anything that can help you get 1 day, 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day to the next day. And with the right attitude, there's an excellent chance that you can prolong your life, and hopefully you can beat what you have and then die from natural causes. That's what I'm hoping for, that I die from natural causes. I mean, my mother lived to be 99 years old, and she recently passed away, and she said, I'm not going to make it to 100, but she tried. I mean, she gave everything she could, and she got to 99. But you know, I just cannot go back to how important mental attitude is, and second opinions when it comes to medical practitioners. It never hurts to get a second opinion, because you know that they say, you know, doctors are practicing medicine, and there's a reason for that. They're practicing medicine. It's a practice, and sometimes that requires experiments and so forth, and they deal with on patients, and they try to get better and better at what they do and come up with different ways of dealing with certain situations, like, you know, different types of cancer. And I know I was watching, I can't remember if it was 60 Minutes or Dateline, and they were saying that they're coming up with different formulas of chemotherapy, and they see vast improvements with what they are coming out with. Now, is it going to be out immediately? You know, like next week? No, but it will be out. And if you find out you have cancer, you want to prolong your life every day, because you don't know when that will become available, and it may become available, and it may be just the type of chemotherapy is needed to cure you and get you back to where you were before you had cancer.
Great. Well, Frank, before we come to a conclusion, you are one of the top U.S. life insurance agents, and you remain and hold that title despite all of your challenges. Can you tell us a little bit more about your professional background and how folks might get a hold of you? Because you are definitely passionate about that.
I'll talk a little bit on that, and then if we're nearing the end here, there's just a little bit I want to say that doesn't deal with me professionally. Those of you who would like to see what the ugliest baby in the world, according to his grandfather, turned out to look like, you can go to Google or YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you can type my name, Frank, and then a space, and then Friedland, which is spelled F-R-I-E-D like in dog, L-A-N-D like in dog. And I'll come up on YouTube many times. But the first one will say benchmark. And if you click on that, that's only 2 minutes and 3 seconds long, and it will tell you my philosophy. Or you can go to you can do that, and then my website is simply my name with no spaces, Frank Friedland, all small letters, and frankfriedland.com. And that will pull up my website. You'll see my credentials, and in the top right corner, there is a video that you can play, and you'll see me what I look like when I played football, and I was robust and all that kind of stuff. But the reason why I am ranked as high as I am, there's a letter on my website from the president of the American College stating that I'm one of only a few agents in the world who sell as much life insurance as I do. One, I only sell life insurance. I always say to people that tell me they have a friend who sold them life insurance, they have a relative, their brother, whatever, I say, if you broke your arm in several places, would you go to an orthopedic surgeon or would you go to a general surgeon? I never had anybody tell me they would go to a general surgeon. Everybody would go to an orthopedic surgeon, and the reason why is they tell me because they're a specialist. So then I simply say, then why did you buy your life insurance from a general surgeon? And they'll say, what do you mean? And I'll say, did your life insurance agent talk to you about disability, about long-term care, about hospitalization, about investments, about, all kinds of things, because they sell many products. And they'll say yes. Well, so that makes that person a general practitioner. I said, I'm not. I'm a specialist. I only sell life insurance. If you want to give me $1 million to buy an annuity, although I have an annuity license and can sell it to you, I will refer you to somebody who specializes in annuities. But if people want to talk to a specialist on life insurance, if they'll spend 3 minutes on the phone with me, I'll tell them what it would cost with me. They can see how much money they save, and I can tell them how much tax-free dollars they'll get back from their permanent program that normally would be lost at their demise. And the program I'm selling them is a permanent program, and it's guaranteed to stay in force to age 120, and it's guaranteed that the price will never go up. And on average, I save people more than 30% of what they're currently spending. But how I want to end on this is, at the end of the day, because I think family is so important, at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is family. And I think the question that each individual should ask themselves, did I do everything I could to make the family a complete, loving, caring unit? And if you have to answer that question that day, that I did not do everything in my power to make my family a complete, loving, caring unit, then in my opinion, you are taking steps backward. The most important thing in your life is your family. And what you want to do is take steps forward. So if you make every day count, giving lots of love to your family, letting your family know that you love them, I mean, because who knows? You leave the house and your children and your wife are still home and you say bye. Who knows if somebody who's on drugs is not going to run a red light and kill you. The last thing you said to them wasn't, I love you. The last thing you said was bye. Your family is, to me, is the most important thing there is. And you should always be taking steps forward to make their happiness and their growth be a reflection of yourself. Because that way, at your demise, the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree, and your children will be representing you because you did everything you could to help them be better people, and they will do everything they can to have their children be better people. And that's how our world will progress. And so, I mean, I just think that's so important.
Thank you, Frank, so much for taking time out. I don't know if our listeners that are on have any questions. I invite everyone to type in your questions in the chat box if you have them. If not, or Frank, if they want to get a hold of you, any questions
about life? If they
want
to get a hold of me, and they can call me anytime, 7 days a week. My cell phone number is 757-329-7546, and you'll also see that if you go to YouTube, and you'll also see that if you go to my website. And so I mean that's if if they want to get back in touch with me, and I just feel so strongly in helping people and in helping the community. Like I was at one time involved with Big Brothers and different organizations to help the community, and there's a group I belong to called Greater 24. You can go online and pull up Greater 24 and see all the good work they do around the world. But I had somebody ask me a question once. If you had to change, how society thinks, what would you say you would like to see done? I would like to see a society that lived without prejudice. And people look at me like I'm nuts. But all I know is that when a baby is born, it's not born with any prejudices. Prejudice is a learned behavior. So if our society can figure out a way to get to young children and show them how they can make a difference in the world, and that all people, all races, all religions, all everything needs to do everything they can to make where they live a better place, a better society, and try to get rid of prejudice, no matter what the prejudices are, because there's people prejudiced against a lot of different things. And if we can somehow reduce that, because all I know is a baby's not born being prejudiced. And so there's a lot of responsibility put on parents, because it just is. And we can change society.
Well, thank you, Frank, for those last words. I think that's the epitome of living life without limits, is when you can affect the world and the community around you. And I think you have done that several times over and over, just with your story of inspiration, of encouraging all of us that are listening and that are going to listen to you as they download the webinar tonight. I thank you for being you, and thank you for fighting and teaching us how to fight and to move forward and to fulfill the purpose and the call that we all have on our lives. You know, all of us are called to do great things, and we just got to stay in the fight long enough to walk it out and to see it come to its full fruition. So I thank you for joining us, and give Frank a call. He's a wonderful life insurance agent. He's my own personal insurance agent, and he has done some great things for me and my family. So, Frank, I thank you again for
Thank you for having me on
us.
the show, and I thank the listeners for staying tuned in.
All right, and I'll talk to you all soon. Until next time. Our next webinar is going to be on choosing a home care agency. So tell all your friends and family that are caregivers that are in this valley of decision of who do they choose and where do they go. We're going to have an expert from Clover Care, Mr. Jeffrey Law, who has been in the healthcare operations management position for years, and he knows a lot about what goes on behind the scenes of all of these different agencies, and he's sure to shed some insight on how you can go about making the best healthcare decisions for you and your family. So I thank you all for participating and look for you to be back with us again in a few more weeks. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.